Good evening, dear friends. Welcome to a new video. Today it's about the company Corrective, respectively Corrective as an institution. Today we want to take a closer look at the topic of PCR tests. I have found out something that I cannot believe yet. That is why I have prepared something for you. We want to juggle a little bit of numbers today. I want to explain a few things to you and it will be really exciting. I can tell you that now, and I think if you want to convince people who still believe in the official media narrative about Corona, this video is very important, so stay tuned.
Government officials insist and isolated individuals for action. We will continue to keep you informed as this story unfolds.
And so welcome to this new video. I would like to thank Andrea very much in advance. Andrea, you know who you are. You have sent me an email. You are one of my viewers. I did not know you before. She sent me a very interesting link that I looked at. It is about a video that I will link below. You can watch it afterwards if you like. In this video, Professor Martin Harditch explains the PCR tests and the numbers behind them. I have watched this presentation. The video is a bit confusing and the quality is not the best. So I thought, you know what, I will build an Excel spreadsheet for you where you can simply enter the numbers. You can run these models against each other and you can then see exactly whether what corrective tells us about the inaccuracies of the test can be transferred one-to-one and whether conclusions that we as a society draw from these numbers are really what they appear to be at first glance. It is about the following statement of corrective which we want to deal today exactly. And that is, coronavirus. No, current PCR tests have no error rate of 30 to 50%. That is a statement. In several YouTube videos, it is claimed that PCR tests for the detection of corona infections give false results in 30 to 50% of cases. The extent of the pandemic is therefore overestimated. Virologist Christian Drosten has already publicly contradicted this statement. Very interesting. We have to take a close look at this. The source is the Zentralinstitut Stuttgart, which sent an email with a statement. The tests at the Clinical Center Stuttgart recognize ill patients in the low virus range to 95%. At higher virus concentration, the sensitivity is close to 100%. Sounds very good at first, doesn't it? I think, wow, madness. So 30% to 50% wrong? Can't be at all. Correct? We read on. We are not aware of any cases of false positive findings so far. When asked by Corrective whether German laboratories have experience with PCR tests and examined samples where the swab was taken correctly, an error rate of 30 to 50% false positive test is conceivable. He answers, no, RT-PCR is highly specific. Specificity ranges from 95 to 98%. So remember these numbers, sensitivity and specificity. We'll go right into what that means. Let's take a close look at the table that I have listed for you and then, as long as you can add, subtract and calculate a little percentage, you can follow me closely to see if what we have just been told here is true or not. Because in this case you can say quite clearly that numbers in mathematics do not lie. So I slide over a little bit and you see a spreadsheet and less of me, but that does not matter. It's all about the numbers. In this spreadsheet, I have put the numbers of the COVID-19 case cluster study. First we explain all the terms and then we look at how the various factors affect our results. For now we will concentrate only on series 1, because we do not want to compare anything yet. In other words, we have a series of tests that we do, such as the COVID-19 case cluster study. In the COVID-19 case cluster study there was an infestation. In other words, what is an infestation? An infestation is the infection rate. This means the number of people who have come into contact with the virus. Of 15%, that is a very high figure. We will see in a moment how we can estimate the extent of contagion in Germany based on what we know from the Robert Koch Institute. This range from less than 1% to about 2.5% to 3%. We have a test that, according to Corrective, which we heard at the beginning, has a sensitivity of 97.5%. That means that in the positive person who are really positive, he really recognizes 97.5% of the persons as positive. In other words, in this case, that would be 134 who are recognized positive and 3 who are negative. Why are there only 137? It is a rounding. I left out the decimal places. In this respect, the percentages are calculated correctly. Specificity is responsible for the negative case. Here too, we have seen what Corrective has indicated. The specificity was 96.5%. This means that of the negative persons tested, 7 781 were actual negative. The test, however, indicated 27 false positives with 754 actual negatives. The whole thing gives a positive rate in the sense of the positive predictive value, the reliability of how many tests of 83.1% are positive. Why is the value here so low? This test has a reliability of 97.5%. The point is, the negative cases are much higher than the positive cases. This means that a small error rate in the negative amount of patients tested has a much greater effect on the positive results. That means that if you look at the fact that 27 were given false positive, then in the sum of 162, it is a percentage of only 83% of the correct number, namely the one that was really positive. Now you can say, that's not bad at all, 83% is great. Well, we are talking about a hotspot. Now let's have a look at what we can find out about the Robert Koch Institute, what the situation in Germany is like at the moment, and that's where it gets very interesting. As of June 8, 2020, we have 184,193 positive corona cases after PCR tests in Germany. That means a total of 8,674 tests, but we do not want to go into that today. According to Statista, the number of tests performed in Germany as of June 4th is 51,918 per million inhabitants. This means that there are 80.15 million inhabitants in Germany at the moment. That brings us, if we add it up, to a number of 4.231 million tests. This means that if we now count the tests that have been carried out and the positive tests against them, then if we divide this by the number of tests, we arrive at the penetration rate of 4.3%. Now we enter the 4.3 into our model and test 4.300.000 people. It should not be forgotten that the Robert Koch Institute mainly tested people who had symptoms of the disease. That means they did not test an average population. Nevertheless, we want to assume 4.3%. If we test 4.3 million people, 4.3% are actually 184,900 positive. That is in the end exactly what we got from the Robert Koch Institute in the positive rate, even a little bit more. This means that a test whose sensitivity is 97.5% will be given. 4,623 negative out of these positive people. Even so, they are actually positive. We should keep that in mind, but with a specificity of 96.5%. The test will show 144,000 people positive who are actually negative, because the number of negative people is much higher. This means that at a specificity of 4.3%, 4,115,000 are negative. The test will, however, positively indicate 144,000 humans due to its 3.5% error rate with negative test results. This means that if we now add up the positive numbers and put them in relation, the test will give a true positive signal only in 55% of cases. And that is frightening. And that is only if we are screening people who are mainly sick. We know that these tests were mainly done in old people's homes, hospitals and similar institutions. They didn't take this test to the countryside and tested people in the broad masses. Let's assume that the people with symptoms and with complaints have been tested, or people who wanted to travel and not the general public, which we know when we see that 4.2 million tests have been done. That is about 5% of the population of Germany. For a moment we assume that the real infestation is only half as high. That is still a very conservative estimate. That means we reduce our infection to 2.15%. If we do that and test 4.3 million people again, we can test 10 million, that doesn't change anything, because the ratio remains the same. Then you see that the problem with the test is not the sensitivity, but the specificity. In other words, because there are now many more people negative in the ratio, in reality at a screening of 2.15% of 10 million people, 215,000 are positive and 9,785,000 are negative. Due to its specificity, 96.5% of 342,000 people are positive and 342,000 people are not positive at all. And these are added to those that the test indicates positive. If we do this now and put this in relation, we come to a true positive statement of only 37.9%, rounded 38% for this test. This means that over 60% of the positive results of the test are false. And all we are referring to are positive test results. Now let's move on to the problem R-value. There are of course different models. The R-value calculation has been changed all the time. Suppose we say that the R-value, as it is supposed to be represented, means the increase of infection or the increase of a potential infection in the population. We have the same model. That means we tested 10 million people last week and had a 2.15% infection rate. We now assume for our model that the infestation remains the same. Nothing changes at all with the infestation. No more people are sick than before. That is what we now assume. We just increase. As you see, we have the same test. Sensitivity is the same, specificity is the same, and we just increase the number of tests. Now you see that the R-value has doubled even though the population has not changed at all. This is all due to error rate that the test adds to the statistics for false positives. That means under such conditions, where we only refer to positive test results, these figures of 97.5% and 96.5% are an absolute catastrophe. They do not show anything at all, and the possibility that they give us is that we can produce any results with the number of tests. If someone would say to me, Samuel, we want to extend the lockdown next week and we need a little bit higher R-value, can you do that for us? I would say, that's no problem at all. We just need to increase the number of tests from 10 million to 13 million, and without any change in the population, the R-value automatically increases to 1.3. This is in the test results Corrective gave us as a rebuttal to someone saying we have far too many wrong results and they are higher than the right ones, higher than 50%. Now we are assuming a realistic value in the population screening. It is about 1% and 1.2% respectively, and that is a rather conservative estimate. There are studies that assume an infestation of less than 1%, but we assume 1.2%. Look how much of the reliability, the positive predictive value, is left in such a test. 25%. That means 75% of the positive ones are false. Do you see the problem? We are about to raise the test results to 99% again, which is something that is wonderful. We will even have a test with 100% sensitivity. We will look at the data on that in a moment. We will now do this in the following way. We have a test that filters out 100% of all positives. If you want to detect 100% of the positive people, you have to have an extremely sensitive test. The more sensitive the test is, the more likely it is that it will fail in people who may have another coronavirus from previous years or something similar. So we assume that we have an enormously well-trimmed test. An enormously well-trimmed test. The figures of Christian Drosten test were 98.6%. We beat the Drosten test with 100% sensitivity and 99% specificity. Even then, almost half of the positives are false positives at 1.2% coverage. Dear viewers, I can tell you one thing, this is not rocket science. Drosten and company also know how such a calculation works. Now I will show you something very interesting. Now let's do the specification from the Drosten test. 98.6%. This is about the same level as the negative side. 98.6%, 98.6%. We now assume that there is no more infection because the virus has disappeared and people are healthy. I already know that the virus is gone because I linked it in my last and penultimate video. The virus disappears, one can hardly develop a vaccine anymore. Let's assume that the infection drops to 0.2%. Look at what happens to the result of the test. Now we have 159,000 false positives. Just because we are testing. You know what the worst thing about this model is? If the infection would go down to 0%, we would still have 140,000 positives that would all be negative because of the 98.6% that this test fails to detect in negative people. That means we have a reliability rate in the positive predicted value of 0%, and that is realistic. These are the areas we are in because we have so little contamination in Germany, and you can see that from the curves. We are going further and further down. We are testing, and we are not finding any more infected people. That drives up the error rate of this test enormously, even if we still assume a rate of 0.35% at the moment. Take a look at the curve at the RKI. It goes steeply down. That means that this test is wrong in 80% of the positive numbers. Let's test 500,000 people per week. At 0.35%, we are 80% wrong. That means we have 6,976 cases that are false positive and 1,726 that are present as positive correct. Now we just increase our test number by 100,000 and we immediately have an R value of 1.2%. With an R value of 1.2%, Angela Merkel dances samba. You see, the problem with these tests is, even if you are told that they are extremely accurate, the problem is specificity. The less people get sick with the virus or the higher the infection is. Because in fact hardly anybody gets sick with the virus. The higher the error rate is with this test. If at some point all people were healthy, you would just have to increase the number of tests and you would always get the results you want. That means if you need a second wave in Germany or somewhere else and you have to produce a lockdown again, you just have to increase the number of tests. Do you know what the worst thing is? You have a test with 98.6 specificity and you take another lab because you don't have enough tests and the lab produces a data set that is not as good in quality. A little bit worse. Instead of 98.6%, this test reacts at 97.9%. So the R value has increased from 1.2% to 1.68% because a test is 0.7% less accurate. Do you notice the relation? This is the model on which the whole argumentation of Drosten, the RKI, and everything the government preaches to us is based. You can play here. Even if you have 1% penetration, we are at an R value of 1.5%. I will link the spreadsheet in my Telegram group. There you can download it and play with the value. In the yellow fields you can enter data. You can experiment with the spreadsheet and get a feeling for what these numbers do. You can also research on the internet how the numbers are calculated. You can research how many people have been tested and you can enter this number here again and again. And you can also search for sensitivity and specificity. Which PCR tests were used? What are the sensitivities and specificities given by the laboratory? You can enter this data into the spreadsheet and use it to create your model. Then no one can fool you anymore because you will see exactly what the results are with the PPV. This was one of the biggest findings I have learned from this video that was sent to me. I will link it and I'm very, very grateful. Andrea, it has been a top thing. I have made this spreadsheet with a lot of pleasure. It is incredible when you look at this mathematics, which is very simple. How such things are not explained to us as a people by politics and those responsible. They can reason and all these people come and say the problem is the trustworthiness of the media and so on. It does not. The problem is that they deliberately withhold such things from us. It's not the media, it's the government. These are bare figures. They are easy to calculate. Anyone can come up with them. That's why, look at these things. To all statisticians, to all those who believe I made a mistake, get in touch with me, write it in the comments. I'm open for everything. Let's discuss about this model. Let's discuss the infestation. We have to come to the discussion, because what we are told is not tenable in my opinion. For everything that corrective there it is, I link you the statement, is in my opinion also not tenable. In this sense, I would like to thank you again for watching. Many thanks for the growth of my channel. I cannot believe it. It's beautiful. Keep it up. Thank you very much. Stay peaceful, stay patient. Even in these times, we are going to talk about Black Lives Matter. So there are many interesting things happening, but bit by bit, keep calm, and I can tell you one thing. If you want to fight injustice with violence, you will never win. And this is one of the principles we should also consider under the current demonstrations, which by the way are taking place without distance and without mask and so on. If we do not manage to stand up for truth and peace and love, then we have no chance. I stand for the latter. In this sense, I hope you do too. I wish you a nice evening and thank you for watching. See you. Yours, Samuel.